had no idea that I was insulin resistant, that I had a diagnosable condition that could actually be causing health problems in my body. Scary health problems, like things like diabetes, liver disease, PCOS, just to name a few. And then those problems could lead to other problems like heart disease, stroke, sleep apnea, which I already have sleep apnea. I didn't know that I had this condition. Insulin resistance is very serious, wellness warrior. Insulin is most famously known to control whether or not we store energy on our bodies. Type 1 diabetics are people who they don't make insulin anymore. And so they eat food, but they struggle to store energy on their body. As a matter of fact, a type 1 diabetic can just eat 24/7 and still waste away as if they were being starved. This is the information that led to our understanding of diabetes. If you develop type 2 diabetes, your doctor will give you medication that helps your body to make more insulin or be more sensitive to insulin so that your body can continue to store energy that you eat away as fat, because insulin resistance is actually your body no longer able to react to the insulin that you produce. Sort of like how if you were to be a newbie to drinking and you have a drink, it hits you hard and you're going to be a little woohoo. But then over time, as you drink more and more, you just get used to it and you can have 4 or 5 drinks and be fine. That's your body becoming resistant to alcohol. And our body does the same thing with insulin. We have so much insulin in our body all the time, we become resistant to it and we need more and more to react until eventually we can't react anymore. I need us to understand that for many of us, becoming diabetic and getting this diagnosis is a sad situation, because by the time we get diagnosed, we are already overweight, many of us, and we don't want to put on more fat. But that's what's going to happen if we take that medication, and we're going to take the medication because we just got a diagnosis of diabetes. So diabetes is diagnosed when your blood sugar is too high, and you're at risk of going into diabetic coma if your blood sugar stays too high. Or another thing that could happen is that you could have eye problems, so like kidney problems, nerve problems, heart problems. When you get a diagnosis of diabetes, we are not only just trying to control the diabetes, we're trying to stop all these other collateral problems from happening. It's a big deal. So guess what you're going to do? You're going to take the medication. To be clear, in a diabetic story, our blood sugar is too high. But the treatment for diabetes is a medication that focuses on insulin. Are you confused? Let me help. We focus on insulin because insulin will remove the sugar from our blood, so that's saving us, but it's going to store it away as fat on our body. But it's saving us, right? We're not going to be poisoned by this sugar, and it's not going to cause all this damage in our body. Sugar in our blood is a huge deal, a gigantic deal. It's super big. Still confused? Are you wondering why we don't focus on sugar? I mean, we eat sugar every day. And I'm not talking about, cookies or ice cream. I'm talking about pasta, rice, potatoes, bread. Those are carbohydrates. And therefore, in our body, sugar. I was confused why we don't focus on doing something about the sugar. You might assume that it's because it isn't possible, but that's not it. Lowering glucose in your blood would be accomplished by eating a keto diet. But doctors don't believe that the average person could sustain a keto diet long term, and they're concerned that keto is not healthy to do long term. Why? There aren't enough studies that show that it's healthy to do long term. Here's my problem. In the early 1900s, we were introduced to ultra-processed foods, which are now central to the standard American diet, standard Canadian diet. standard wherever you live, insert your country there, without any research to support it being healthy. We've been maintained on the standard American diet, standard Canadian diet, and then they added low-fat diets in 1970s, again, without any evidence of them being healthy. They did that in the face of rising weight, increasing diabetes, heart issues, Alzheimer's, gut issues. I mean, the list of problems that have come on the scene and risen, ever expanding. And by the way, just for us to be clear, diabetes results in the doctor prescribing medication that we are expected to take for the rest of our lives. So we wouldn't do keto forever in their belief, but they expect us to take medication forever. But there's a good reason for that. I'm going to tell it to you. Here we go. I think this is because doctors are aware of the pull of carbohydrates, because they live it too. We are all walking around with this knowledge that we need carbohydrates, not just because medical school proclaims it, but because we can feel it. We are pulled to high carb foods like magnets. We aren't in control, not even a little bit. We're not in control. And most doctors think this is because carbs are healthy and our body is just focusing us on what we need. That's not it. What they don't know, so what I'm saying the doctors don't know, is that there's a thing called the bliss point. It's a term that companies, so food companies, came up with to describe that perfect amount of sugar in a product that makes it irresistible to us. When we combine that bliss point amount of sugar with the right amount of salt and fat, now we get another thing called this hyperpalatable food that humans just can't resist. It's why when you pop that can of chips, you can't just eat one. It's why you eat a row of cookies when you were meaning to eat a serving. It's their intention to get us to consume as much product as possible so that we buy more product and they make more money. And before you click off the video, because I know this sounds crazy, what most of us don't know is that we aren't just dealing with a food company that's trying to sell us a healthy breakfast cereal. We're dealing with a company that needs to show profits to their shareholders. And therefore, they've adopted marketing practices that tobacco companies used to use. They get us hooked with freebies, right? Those little sample sizes that come in the mail. And they keep the prices like really low so everybody can afford them. All they need to do is just sell a little bit more. They market to our children, Wellness Warrior, so that they're heavy users by the time they're 9, 10 years old. Cereal for breakfast, granola bars at lunchtime, ice cream for after supper. Every single day, they're eating junk. Does this sound familiar? Is this your house? I know that it was my house. My daughter was eating all this junk, and it just looks normal to us. How could we possibly expect anyone to eat keto forever? And the obvious answer is to give medication that allows the newly diagnosed diabetic to continue to eat candy and rice every day because that's normal. The typical doctor is unaware they're a slave to sugar and that they too are creating a diabetic situation with every meal. Because the typical doctor believes that the heart healthy check on their cereal and the fact that they cut the fat off their meat is the healthiest thing they could possibly do. How do I know this? Doctors are overweight too. Doctors end up with diabetes too. And doctors have health issues, and insert the name of problem, doctors get the same problems. They prescribe medication to solve a problem that eating keto could solve because they don't know how to control their own cravings either. Wellness Warrior. To get your cravings under control, you need to know what causes them. And that's in this video. Click on the link. I'm going to meet you over there.